Talking Bollocks podcast. TB or not TB? You decide.
Hi everybody, I am Benjamin, the UK's most hated sales trainer, and this is another episode of my podcast, Talking Bollocks. TB or not TB, you decide. Now, as you know, this podcast is all about talking to ordinary, everyday salespeople, not leaders, not gurus, not experts, not someone trying to plug a book or a methodology or anything like that. Just someone who's out there in the trenches. And we want to hear about their successes, but more importantly, we want to hear about their failures, because we love failure, because we can relate to failure. So I have a special guest, and I've known this gentleman for many years, actually. We met through LinkedIn. So for those who say social selling is a complete crock, it's got some minor benefits to it. So we met many years ago. We've met in person on several occasions. In fact, we had a beer, I think it was last week, at a trade show. So I'm going to get him to introduce himself. His name is Richard. I'm going to get him to tell you who he is, where he works, what he does, and then we're going to crack on. So over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Benjamin. Good to be on here. So yeah, my name is Richard Smith. I am a salesman of about 14 years in the trade, and I am currently the VP of sales at a company called Refract, although we were acquired last year, hence the swag that I'm dossing myself in right now by a company called Allego, who are a software company based in the US. But yeah, I've kind of had a very atypical career in sales, failed pretty miserably at university. I'm sure we'll probably get onto that. Landed in sales because, nothing else that I could probably do at that point in my life. Done all roles from being an SDR, even though they weren't called SDRs back then, through to now being fortunate enough to be leading the sales team here at Allego. So yeah, that's my introduction and history in a very tight nutshell.
Oh, very good, very good. Okay, yeah, well, actually, you've already touched on something earlier, because I've been asking everybody this, because you're like me, you know this. Most people, virtually, I'd say 95% of people in sales are there by default, not by design. This is not what they wanted for their life. They had plans, they had dreams, they had goals, and then reality slapped them around the face like a wet fish, and they needed to make money. So tell us your story. How did you get into selling? How is it you become a 14-year veteran now?
Yeah, well, so weirdly enough, I had a real big interest in IT at school, and I was pretty good at it. And when I say I was good at IT, I mean, thinking back then, it's almost ridiculous. Like, I could make a spreadsheet, I could write a Word document, and in my education years of school, you could get like an A GCSE IT if you could actually put together like a spreadsheet, which was the technical aptitude you had to have. So I thought, hey, I'm pretty good at this IT stuff. I'll do a degree at university in IT, and I saw this computer science degree, and thought, hey, I'm going to take my Microsoft Word and Excel and Microsoft Access, remember that one? I'm going to take that skill and I'm going to nail this university thing. And I realized I was far less intelligent than I actually was, because there was people on my course who were much smarter than me that could, write code and develop things, and that was far beyond my level of aptitude. And quite frankly, I came out with what they call a Desmond, a 2-2, which is a pretty underwhelming degree. I think in the process, disappointed my parents, who are both teachers, that they paid for their son to go through university and come out with a pretty bang average score at the end of it. Yeah. Realized I wasn't going to do anything was never going to be a developer. I'd failed at that pretty much. Found myself working in a call center. And as we all do.
The gateway, isn't it?
And back then I was trying to persuade and sell basic energy grants to pensioners and people who the kind of underprivileged in society, did that far longer than I thought I was going to do it for.
How long? How long did you do that for?
So I was like, I'm going to do this, get a job for 2 months doing this, pay some bills, earn some beer money for the weekends, and I'm going to get a proper job, as they say. But yeah, a year and a half later, and I was still in this call center, hating my life, and ultimately going for interviews for other sales jobs and not actually landing any of those jobs too. So it was a bit of a time.
So for the viewer then, what was a proper job Did you know what the proper job was, or did you just know it wasn't sales?
I don't actually know what in my head was a proper job. I think it was kind of in a place where I could put on a shirt and tie and a suit. Maybe was the definition that I created in my head. Yeah. But that's not me being defamatory. There's some good people who work in that call center. Ultimately, I just felt, at that point in time, my parents, who were both teachers, who'd paid for me to go through this education system, were like, what on earth has happened to you? Like, we've invested.
So it's fair to say your parents were disappointed.
Yeah. And when I told them I'd landed my first sales job, then even the disappointment just extended. They just thought, what you're going to be like flogging like double glazing or PPI insurance, or I think that was what was in their head when I said I got my first proper job in sales, was this sense of kind of underwhelming reality struck them of like, oh dear, what's happened here? What's gone wrong?
Wow, that's I bet that is a very common story. I bet the number of people out there that when they told their parents after finishing university or whatever and having to get a job, went home and told them they're in sales, the look would have been, why? What? Yeah, because people see sales as such a derisory role, especially if you're a professional. Yet this is what annoys me. The whole world is predicated on selling. The entire capitalist system is people create something and then they sell it. It's the foundation for our civilization, yet it is still scorned upon because we spend our lives watching movies about dodgy car salesmen. Or we've all been burned in the past, been ripped off by some shyster. Or someone's phoned us up at home and, as you say, tried to sell us a grant and been pushy and aggressive. And wow. So, what is your worst experience as a salesman? Your most embarrassing, your most humiliating, maybe a moment you've been in the middle of the throes of doing something and you've almost wanted the world to open up and swallow you. You think of that moment.
Oh, I mean, there's many. I do cast my mind back a couple of years ago, so fairly recent. This is when we could go in and shake people's hands in offices and things like that, and people would welcome you into their office. Yes. So I went to visit a prospect, not a client as people call them, because they weren't a client. I hear lots of people say, I'm off to see a client today, a client that's never paid me a pound of money yet. So how can you call them a client? Anyway, that's another thing. I went to see a prospect at their office, and my contact had helped me kind of get in the door. They weren't the decision maker. But they'd kind of like prime me. It felt like things were in a good place. We had initial good conversations. He was like, right, we're going to meet the CEO today. So, and he said, right, this guy's pretty straight talking. That's fair enough. I've met plenty of CEOs in my time. Anyway, I can only describe the next sort of 45 minutes was just one of the worst experiences of my life with this CEO who kind of like, to say that I didn't, I felt like I was on the back foot would be an understatement. He was like, right, I'm gonna give this guy a rough ride. That was the mentality.
Right.
He didn't want to answer any of my questions. The questions I did ask, he would question why I was asking them. This just went on, and I kind of like would look at my contact who invited me in the first place. He was sat in the meeting room, kind of thinking, what's going on here? Like, can you not help me out? And he just kind of sat there, kind of sloped back into the darks of the room, and thought, I'm going to let Rich, kind of walk the plank himself here.
Was he enjoying watching you get eviscerated? Maybe
quite possibly. Anyway, what I kind of learned, is like, I think me standing my ground back in that meeting in hindsight actually probably helped. And I think there was an element of him testing me and seeing, what's this guy really all about. And I actually came out of that meeting. I remember like saying to myself, I don't want to do business with this customer. In fact, I'm convinced we're not even going to do business together. Lo and behold, that a week later, a contract was signed with that customer. And I think for me, it was just a moment that I'd felt like I'd been put through the ringer. I was, made to feel incredibly uncomfortable. But actually kind of came out of it learning some stuff too, which was...
What was the lesson from that experience you took away? Then how did you apply it going forward? Yeah,
so the lesson I learned was, like, first of all, don't just walk into a don't walk into a meeting room just because you've had a good, positive conversation and built up some kind of rapport with an initial contact. Don't think that that's going to kind of bleed through to other stakeholders in the business. There's multiple personalities, profiles, politics at play. The second part is the one thing I didn't get riled up in that meeting, even though I was kind of feeling it inside. And instead, I kind of just asked this guy back at various points in the meetings the questions like, it sounds like we're on the wrong tracks here. And every time I did that, this guy pulled me back in, said, no, that's not the case. And I think when you are in those situations where you feel like you're in a fractious situation, one of the best things you can do in sales is pull away. Like move left if they're going right, because oftentimes prospects, if they see that you're pulling away and that you're actually prepared to like walk away from that meeting, you're not there, you're not expecting the deal. Prospects don't, when they realize that you're going to move away and they want you, they'll often pull you back in. If they don't pull you back in, and that tells you all you need to know about the deal in the first place. So I think they were things that I learned, and definitely took a lot from that episode, so to speak.
Well, that's good. That's an excellent point that you raised, and it's something I spend my time teaching, the people I work with, that if you're in a meeting and it suddenly becomes hostile or adversarial, something's gone wrong. Now, usually, most of the time, it's because the salesman said or done something, and it's trying to figure out that. But if it's not, I've said if you feel it's not going well, you should actually call it. Don't be scared to ask the person a question. Look, can I ask you a question, Mr. Prospect? Is it me? Have I done something to piss you off, or do you hate all salespeople? You get it out on the table, right? Because if he's just being a dick for the sake of being a dick, you don't have to take it. Salespeople think they've got to take it. Well, this is my lot in life. I'm just grateful I'm talking to a human being with a pulse. No, get up and walk out. You don't have to sit there and be treated like you're scum, because you're not, unless you did it. And
right.
If you did it, you need to figure out what it is I did or said, and don't do it again.
There's this thing called need for approval, which is like this sales competency that basically epitomizes this. And it is the one thing that holds back so many salespeople, is they have a desire to be liked by their prospect, and they have a fear for pissing their prospects off. Yeah. And it's like asking those tough questions that they think, if I ask this question, this is going to derail the deal. Well, if you don't ask it, the deal's probably going to be derailed anyway. And I think I see this a lot of the time where I'm listening to calls from and meetings from my own sales reps, and I kind of asked them, I said, what was going through your head at this point in the call? And they said, well, I really wanted to ask them this question. I just felt a bit uncomfortable doing it. And I kind of said, why did you feel uncomfortable? And they're like, well, just didn't want to piss them off. And I'm like, that's need for approval. You've got a high need for approval there, when actually that was exactly the right question you should have been asking them at that point in the call. And then because salespeople wonder why so many of their deals end in this kind of graveyard of no decision. They're kind of like, you see it in their CRMs and their pipelines of like, just they've just kept those opportunities there, and week after week, nothing happens with them. They don't move on, and they kind of kid themselves that one day this prospect's going to wake up and go, Benjamin, I'm going to give him a call. I've decided I want to suddenly move this forward. Just doesn't happen like that. And they can't let go, because they can't accept that if they ask tough questions that gives them answers that they don't really like, it's what they don't want to hear. But actually, that is exactly what they should be doing.
No, you're bang on the money. High need for approval is one of the biggest problems with salespeople. People who are naturally gravitas towards sales, which you did. You could have got any other crappy job.
Right.
But you gravitas towards sales because you think, well, yeah, I could do this. I'm a personable guy. I like meeting people. And so they think that's what makes you good at sales. And then they carry them forward them. And like I say, only decision makers can get others to make decisions. So if you're opposite a CEO or an MD or a director, these guys make decisions all the time. So they'll ask tough questions because decision makers ask tough questions. If you can't do that back to them, they're never going to give you any money. They're never going to trust you. And you need them to trust you, not like you, to buy from you.
Oh, yeah.
If you're in sales to find friends or prove you have value as a human, get out. Become a social worker,
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't the place for it.
This just really you're just hitting on a spot that I just totally sings to my heart. Is I have lost countless deals over the years where I was told by the prospect, you know what, I like you the best out in, it was a competitive situation. Oh, I hated the others. I didn't, I just didn't kind of warm to the salesperson, but I really like you, Rich. And if it was based on just person and being a person, I would have chosen you. And I'm like, that's fine. You don't buy based on the fact that you like me and that you didn't like the other guy as much. You just believe that they could help you better than I could.
Yeah.
And people still kid themselves sales that it's like, oh yeah, I think I've got a really good relationship with this guy. Yeah, he really seemed to like me. He really, we really got on well in that meeting. It's like, what does that even mean? Like, I've heard that so many times before in my career, and I've still lost the deal. Why? Because people buy based on the company, the person that they think is going to help them, is the most best fit for them. So this is something that just winds me up when I hear this nonsense that gets talked about.
Oh, I completely agree. I can imagine how many thousands of times a day is there someone in an office right now saying, the salesman's a knob, but their product's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. They buy in spite of salespeople, not because of salespeople. And it's getting them to realize that you're a conduit for getting them to see that your product can fix their problem. That's it. You're not important. You could actually never give them your name or anything about you and they wouldn't care.
Right.
Yeah? But they have to do this because we've got these social graces. We do a little bit of chit chats and where you're from. We do that, but we don't care. And salespeople don't get that. They think they're bonding. They think they're building rapport. No.
I was listening to a call recently, and it was an initial discovery conversation where there was 30 minutes put aside with a senior person. I was like, you got 30 minutes with this person, and that's your max, and you've got to get this person from here, as in like, I'm not entirely sure why we're talking today, albeit this might sound interesting, to getting them to want to speak with you more by the end of that 30 minutes. It's not a lot of time. You've got to move the needle every single question that you ask in that 30 minutes, because if you're not moving the needle, you can forget about the deal at the end of it. For the first 15 minutes, the salesperson was asking about the weather and your family and taught me about the products that you sell and who do you sell to. And I thought, none of the answers that you're going to get here are going to help you move this forward. Also, do you honestly think the prospect thinks that you actually care about the answers that they're giving you? They don't. No. So stop thinking that small talk equals building rapport. Just bollocks.
It is bollocks. You are right. You don't need to do any of that. You could be a complete prick, but if you ask the right questions and make the prospect realize this guy knows what he's talking about.
Right.
I wouldn't want to have a beer with him.
Yeah.
But he's on the money. Therefore, I'm going to keep talking to him. And that's it. Most MDs you wouldn't want to hang out with, but they still do all right.
Oh, yeah.
They're not looking for friends. So, no, you are quite right. Okay, good. So let me ask you this then. Can you think of the worst, obviously no names for legal reasons, can you think of the worst sales manager or boss that you had in your sales career? And what was it about them that was so awful?
Yeah, there's kind of one that springs to mind. I wouldn't say they were awful, so to speak. I would just say they were kind of atypical of a lot of managers who are they're like the black box. They still are doing a bit of selling themselves.
Yes.
But they don't want to share their kind of secrets and wisdom to other people.
Oh.
Because it's like, if they're top of the leaderboard, as long as they're top of the leaderboard, they're still they look like the sunshine out their arse in the business. Yet actually,
their ego strong.
Exactly. Yet what they should be doing is when you make the decision to become a manager, sales leader, you have to realize and accept that it's not about you anymore.
Exactly. Correct.
It's not about you taking the glory. It's about you. You are empowering other people on your team to be successful, because when they're successful, as a knock-on impact of that, you look better. But there's too many people out there, and the example I've got in mind here is that there was still an element of, I want to be seen as the top revenue generator in the business. I'll kind of, give you a bit of moral support every now and again. But I'm not going to give away my tricks of the trade. And it's like, hang on a second, that's not the role that you're doing here.
Yeah.
You have to, and I think this is just a massive problem in the industry where people are getting promoted to being sales managers because they were a good salesperson. They brought in some decent revenue. All right, here's the sales manager job. That's the natural promotion. Yet they've got no desire, no skill set to actually coach and empower their own people, which is ultimately what they should be doing.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking to a sales manager today, literally, and he said, we've been doing a lot of your stuff. We've watched a lot of videos and it works. And I've been getting the guys to watch it. We've been implementing it. It's going really well. And I said, so why do you need me? I mean, if you're figuring out how to do it for free off of what I provide, online, why do you need me? He goes, honestly, I go, yeah. He goes, I don't know why it works. He goes, but I can show people it, but I don't know why it works. I go, exactly. If you don't know why it works, you can't teach it, right? He goes, and that's because I'm the manager. I say, do this, and I demonstrate it, and it works. But if someone said why, I don't know. And he goes, and there are so many sales managers like that. They get hired because they've got great sales skills. You say, but why are you good? Right. Oh, because people like my personality. I'm persistent. I've got a good product knowledge base. So those aren't answers. It's that, no, why? What do you specifically do each and every time? And why does it work? And they look at you, they go, I don't know. I just know that if I do, And
that's fascinating.
And it's amazing, right? And that's how I got into training. It's like someone said to me, why are you good at selling? I said, I don't know. And he said to me, if you could figure out why what you do works, I think you'd do all right out of this. And that's what got me on my journey to figure out how and why people sell the way they do.
It's kind of this whole debate, Benjamin, around like art and science of like, and I think there's too many people out there that said, oh, it's all about the art. It's like, yeah, he's just got something about him that makes him successful. And I'm like, well, hang on, I'm not buying that. I'm like, I agree that he might have something about him, but specifically, what are those things? And it's like, when people can't tell you that, it's like, well, that is why this is less about being an art, which is just like, people look at a picture with flicked paint on, and it's a beautiful picture, and they can't explain why to the person who thinks it looks like a pile of shite. Yeah. And it's like, well, the science is being able to specifically explain, well, they must do something different. And if you knew those things, then you'd be able to replicate them. But too many people are like, oh, he's just got an aura about him. He's got something you can't teach. And it's
they
like,
want to hold that, as you said, like, they want to hold that to themselves because it's what they feel or they got. You are correct. If someone said to me, what would you science, art, or selling art or science? I'd say it's theatre, because theatre is both art and science. Because good actors have trained and studied,
right?
And then they go out and they deliver theatre. They deliver art. They can adapt and mold. And so we're in the same business. It's basically selling is acting for ugly people. That's all this is, right?
I'd fit in that category. So yeah.
This is why so many want to hide behind LinkedIn. You don't have to actually see them or meet them. This is how social selling came about.
Right.
Yeah, people are getting uglier.
Yeah, certainly during lockdown.
Exactly, right. So we hide behind the photo of us 12 years ago when we were thin. Yeah.
There's a reason I'm holding on to my profile picture for your life.
We're all guilty of it, right? So good. All right, couple more questions. Looking back on your 14 years in sales, what piece of advice would you give to you starting out again? Would you say, don't do it, find something else? Probably not, because you're in it 14 years later. What would you give you're starting out? What would you say to somebody? What would you say to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love this profession. I struggle to see myself doing anything else. And that's not because feel like I'm locked into this cage and sales cage and I can't get out. It's genuine as year by year, I admire the profession more and more. And I think I do believe that even though it is still terrible out there in the main, there is, I think things are on the up somewhat as far as sales as a profession, albeit I think, as I said, I think there's a long, long way to go. Yeah. But if I was to go back, what would I tell myself? Well, I remember the first, let's call it few years. Well, in fact, put it this way, I believe I've learned more about sales in the last 4 years than I probably did in the 10 years before it.
Yeah.
And so I think with that in mind, like I've invested more time myself in studying sales, learning about sales, immersing myself in sales content, being coaching other people. And I think I didn't do a lot of that. I was kind of trying to learn by osmosis back then for too long. And I probably made far less commission than I could have and was far less successful than I could have been. So, and I just think there's no excuse now. There's no, like, maybe back then one excuse I could use is that like the amount of free information out there available is incredible now. Like you could a new salesperson could go on your YouTube channel, Ben, Benjamin, and learn stuff that probably would never have been accessible for 10 years ago. Probably you'd have to had to pay to actually watch it. And there is lots of stuff like that out there that you could, even if you've got nobody else training you or coaching you, you could teach yourself some stuff versus just, you know what, I'm just going to figure this stuff out as I go along.
Okay.
So I'd say for me, that is probably the main one. The other one is kind of triggered back to what I said before is need for approval. Like understand your self-worth in sales. Do not be a pussy salesperson who just, kind of ends sales calls by, maybe we'll speak next week and maybe we'll catch up and, when you're ready, is have the nuts to control your destiny in sales and understand that, you don't need prospects. You don't need prospects. Stop thinking that you owe something to prospects who simply aren't going to buy from you. So I think just having that mentality change a lot earlier would have seen me do a lot better.
Yeah. It all ultimately comes back to mindset and how you see yourself, and because it determines how you behave and act. And the number one reason, I've never met a salesperson that lacks confidence, because this is the number one thing that comes up every time. I think they just need a bit more confidence. They just need a bit more. It's like, they don't have a confidence problem. What drives confidence? And it takes them, it's belief. They have the wrong beliefs. They believe the wrong things about them, the product, their prospect, their role, their place, their value, their worth, their money concepts. All of their beliefs determine how they behave.
And I'd say, yeah, definitely belief. I'd also say like skill set as well. Like you when you get better at something, you inherently get more confident at it.
Yeah.
So that's why people should be investing in. If you're not getting invested in from your business, invest in yourself externally to get training, coaching, development. Otherwise, what you're doing, you're festering away in a profession. We call it profession, but you're literally treating it like a job in. I mean,
For most people, it is a job. Yes, most salespeople, if you ask, I've got 10 years experience. No, you haven't. You've had the same year 10 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Experience. That is a life sentence, not a career.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great way of putting it. But yet you see a lawyer or a surgeon or accountant. Are they the same 10 years into their career? No.
If you work in Starbucks or Costa Coffee, you're getting trained every quarter on this is how to perfect your cappuccino skills. Like there's people are better trained in bloody Costa and Starbucks than there are working for in well-paid B2B sales roles.
It is crazy. All right. Well, look, hey, Richard, I've really enjoyed this chat. We've come to the half-hour bit, so we're going to let you go because I know people's attention span wanes 30 minutes in. So, Richard, one last thing. If people wanted to get a hold of you at your company, where's the best place to reach you? What are your contact details?
Just connect with me on LinkedIn, Richard Smith, and you type in Refract. Otherwise, there's about 100 million of us out there. Find me on there. I'm the one with the profile picture where it has more hair on my head than I currently have today. So
the old photo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, hey, Richard, it's been a real honor. It's been great having you on the show. I hope you've enjoyed it at home watching this. And if you'd like to be a guest, you're an ordinary salesman with some great stories, and just reach out. Like I say, this isn't for leaders or gurus. It's just for ordinary run-of-the-mill sales guys and gals like Richard and I. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. And